Welcome to the Mental Health Minute podcast. My name is Chris Stallard, and I'm the Executive Director for the Bridge Youth and Family Services. We provide mental health and family stabilization services to youth and families in our community. Through our podcast, we will talk to partners and experts, learn from Bridge staff, and talk with individuals who've received support through our services and who've become stronger as a result. Normalizing the conversation around mental health creates healthier individuals, families, and communities. Looking forward to sharing with you. Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Health Minute podcast. I'm Chris Stallard, your host, and today I have with me Jason Stallard. Jason is a friend. He is the owner and producer of Love Local, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on your show. It's a true honor to have you in here, along with Bridge's mission with Mental Health Minute. But my name is Jason Stallard. I am a founder of Love Local Media. I would love to say I'm a producer with it too, but Cole Keller is very much that behind the scenes, and also Deanna Orger as well. There's a lot of that producing stuff to be able to get us along. But I built Love Local from what I saw, out in the community. I was a community first realtor, loving on the community with videos. And through that, I learned that power of story. And because I learned the power of story, and I love the medium of video, and I love the video medium of podcasting, I wanted to join in with some pretty awesome people, with other partners in Love Local, to be able to build a business that helps amplify the voices of the people in the community. And we're really looking to do that through podcasting and through video, to be able to do that. And we want to showcase our communities. We think that we're stronger together as community members. So, and we learned a lot of that through COVID. We help businesses, but we're really passionate about the nonprofits in our community. It's those nonprofits, to me, they're the boots on the ground, the people that are putting in the work to make our communities a better place. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that before COVID. And I didn't know that, if I look back even 5 years, almost 5 years ago now, before COVID, and I learned a lot through that. But we're stronger together, and there's so many people doing good work in the community within our nonprofits that I think it's part of our mission to help be your technician, so y'all could do the work to help make our communities stronger, because this type of stuff could heal people in their sleep.
Okay. And did you know that you always wanted to be in this type of work? I mean, always is a long time, right? But has this been a vision of yours, or did you sort of stumble on this through your work as a realtor?
I think my vision sucks. I think I have to give the credit to God here. I started off with loving video in 2017 when I got into real estate. I was in corporate America beforehand, but and I struggled in corporate America with my mental health because I wasn't really doing the right things. So got into real estate, got to be an entrepreneur, and I started learning from other people that are doing these community videos and stuff like that around the country. And they were pretty much local diners, drive-ins, and dives, and they were doing local nonprofits. So for me, I was a realtor, and I still am a realtor. And we did all that 2017, 2018. We're out in the community, hey, we're here at, we did apple tree campaign at the township. It was one of our first videos that we did, back in 2017, 2018. And we had a love for the community then, and a love for helping amplify the voices of the good that was being done in our community. But when COVID hit, I saw so much. And when I was out in the community making videos, we made over 75 videos within a 2-year period, over 2 million views here locally with the help of ads, where we were building a community with Love Local Chicagoland to highlight our community. Through that process, I feel like God worked through me to understand the power of story. Mm-hmm. And that even though our world's kind of being divided now, and all this stuff is happening, that if you listen to each other's stories, if we're similar and or different, our commonalities within our lives and within the struggles are so similar at the root. And that made me fall in love with story, and video and podcasting was just the median to be able to do it. So I had no intentions to be able to go out and build this. I think, in end of 21, 22, after going through a lot of videos and doing that stuff in the community, really felt that I was like, I don't think this is real estate. It kind of felt dirty. I don't even want to add real estate to it, because I'm meeting people like you. I'm meeting, people like Pam Moore of Fellowship Housing, or Erica, formerly, at Family Forward, and all these movers and shakers in the community that are doing such good work to make our community stronger. It really just pulled me in to be like, man, I'm watching clips at night that are helping me with my mental health with some guy that's across the country or across the nation or whatever, across the world, whatever it would be, through these social media platforms. What if we just took all of this local and we doubled down? And I don't think it's my idea. I think it's whatever's working through me, I'm super grateful for, but I have a true passion to help amplify others' voices, because I think the world needs it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think that, did you have such exposure to all of the nonprofits in your community before you started with Love Local? Did you know the sheer existence of the number of
No clue.
people?
No clue. And kind of give you a little story there. I was in this beginning of COVID, March that year. The world's on fire. The helpers of the world are out there trying to help in any which way possible. And there was this Facebook group that I was a part of, that it was like Neighbors Helping Neighbors or something like that. It was a little bit different name. It definitely wasn't the name, but it was something along those lines. And what I saw during that time, I saw a woman that wanted to really help people and to do the right things, but she was trying to control it all, and she didn't understand that all these resources were already in our community. And for me, it was when the first thing I'm like, well, my value add here is stories and video and all this types of stuff. So through that process, meeting her, removing myself from it, because it ended up getting into a non-healthy place, and it eventually fell apart shortly thereafter. But why? We don't have to do that work. There's already nonprofits that are doing all of this work in our community already. We need to amplify their voice, because they already have a head start. You're trying to build this from scratch. There's so many great nonprofits in our community. So you're already doing the work. Now we just need to help you. We need to come amplify your voice. We need to come, give our time. We need to give fiscally if we can, because I think if we did that with these nonprofits in our local community, we can help shape a better tomorrow, because you all see the problems in our community and you're helping fix them. But you're only so many people. It's going to take all of us. And I think the more awareness we could give around that in our local community, the better as we move forward.
Yeah. And stories are so critical to understanding, because if you didn't grow up with the experience of what a nonprofit does, right? If you weren't homeless, or if you weren't food insecure, or if you don't have mental health issues, you don't really know what that experience is like. And so as a helping profession, right, we need to be able to tell those stories, but those stories don't always come to life. And so it's been helpful having storytellers join our crusade, if you will, to amplify the voices of the people who need people to hear them, because we don't hear people, we don't see people until something happens.
For sure. And this world is so diverse, and our stories are, I go back to they're very common at the root of them, but our stories are different. But I do think that all of our stories matter. So it's very much about letting stories being heard, hearing. What I love about all this stuff is about hearing stories and learning perspectives that you wouldn't have gotten before or from anywhere else, but now you could see things differently. And in times when, not to get political, and I'm not going to get political, but when in divisive times, to me, I think we need to double down on that type of thing and hear other stories, hear why we think the things that we think, because usually there's root causes there. We all want a better tomorrow in our local communities. We all want to make sure that we're healthy. We all want to make sure that our kids are taken care of, but it's going to take all of us. And And to me, I think the quickest way to do that is like just by getting involved in a community and a nonprofit and kind of supporting that way and helping make a better tomorrow through your story, through your messaging that you feel like you have out there. And I feel like all of us have that in our own unique ways, and everybody's different.
And I think that's a great point. We our nonprofit, we serve mental health, family stability. So we want to make sure that kids and families stay together whenever possible. We want to make sure kids get deflected from juvenile justice programs. And more importantly, we want to make sure that people are emotionally well. And that's our sole activity. And mental health is not something that is social class focused, right? Mental health affects every person.
Everybody.
Doesn't matter where you come from, how long you've been on the earth. Mental health affects everybody. And we're seeing more and more of that every day. And people who say, I don't have mental health issues, we're like, okay, so you're healthy today, but have you been depressed? Have you experienced anxiety? I was just talking to a friend right before I got here, and he said, I am so anxious, I'm losing sleep over a volunteer gig. And I said, well, that's classic burnout, so it's time for you to walk away from the project. And he's like, okay, I've got a deadline, So we, to come back to, our nonprofit is only mental health focused, but you've seen all the nonprofits in our community. And what do you see as a common thread, or do you see mental health as a common thread, as a co-occurring issue among all of these individuals who might be seeking services from another nonprofit?
Yeah, I think the common thread is y'all have big hearts and y'all are helpers. I think no matter nonprofit I think of that and people that want to help make a better tomorrow. And sometimes even they take their struggle and they go into that nonprofit. We're working now with some people with domestic violence abuse and stuff like that. You're taking your struggle to help so go in and help those people that have been there, because you've been there, now you're uplifting them. I see a lot of that in the nonprofit sector. What I was surprised about is that how, I went to a community leaders thing with Prince of Peace Church. It's in Palatine. Your team comes to it. And I remember being there for the first time and just recognizing like that y'all didn't know each other. And to me, in business, we talk about power partners. This person could help me, I could help them, and we could win together. Well, to me, like I look at partners of our community, I look at Fellowship Housing, I look at Family Forward, the list could go on and on. They do a lot of great services, but mental health necessarily isn't one of them. It's very much a niche thing, but all of them need them, and many other nonprofits, because you are the experts in that. So the opportunity for us to be able to connect and to collaborate and to support one another, I think we're growing in it, but I think we have more work to do, because I think if you're one call away, they know they could call Bridge if they're out, if a police officer is at a place where there's problems with mental health, and they know that they could make that connection to Bridge right there. Or a fireman or a paramedic or another nonprofit, like we could get to people quicker, and people need help. Life's hard. Our world is changing. We're not going to notice what this phone is doing to us till we're probably long gone. But it's all new, right? But it's bringing up emotions. It's doing things, plus all the other stuff that we've had with mental health. So to me, with the nonprofits is like, I think continue to work together, continue to strengthen that here in our local community, because I think your power partner piece of what we do, I think that's like the foundation of the house to make our community stronger, is you guys doing the work, and hopefully many community members coming on to join you. I know it kind of went a little off the topic, but in that direction. But yeah.
Yeah. And nonprofits have a habit of becoming siloed. because there's a small funding pool.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all know what the funding pool is. We all know the same donors. We all have the same lists. The annual reports publish them. And so we end up in these silos. And one of my dreams in my next life, I hope I'm able to affect some change, but being able to see the web of support needed. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The community is only as strong as their weakest members. So how do we uplift people and feel like what is affecting them also has the ability to affect me, and not at the granular level necessarily, but you think of pockets, right? You think of pockets where there's a lot of poverty, lack of resources, maybe not clear pathways to affordable groceries. And what happens in those pockets is you end up with communities who are fraught with maybe violence or
they're trying to survive.
Right, survival, right? And so how do we weave this web and make it as important as all the other things that we have going on in our community? And that's my dream. My dream is that everybody who needs a service has access to it. There isn't a lot of red tape and bureaucracy to get there, but that's pie in the sky.
I don't think it's your next life. I think you're a part of that web right now. If you look at how we could connect with what we're doing right now, and how this long form piece of content could be made into short form pieces of content that get messages across there with the help of written word that truly could help heal people in their sleep. Mm-hmm. So no matter nonprofit you are, there's that there. But we need the people that are the helpers, all this stuff. You guys know that work, but that web's being built as we speak. It's called the internet. It's called social media. The 6 degrees of separation with the Facebooks, the LinkedIns, say those two first, Instagram, maybe a little bit, those 6 degrees of separation here in our local community, it could, with the help of content creation, with the help of people like yourself and your team that are uplifting people in our community, we could make a better tomorrow. The web, your web is really the web, and it's the social platforms, and it's how these algorithms work. So I go back to, I tell people, you could heal people in your sleep with this. You're not going to know once this really gets rolling, which I think we're just getting started in this part of this revolution that we're in, we could really help make a better tomorrow by helping meet people where they're at, by we're helping them work through their struggles or whatever they are with mediums like this, and talking to them, about, life is hard, those types of things, and shame is a part of it, but you can get over this, and I think through that, these nonprofits, you hear me talking about community a lot. Community is two things for me. It's obviously the larger community at whole, but it's also these small communities of people. I look at Love Local Media itself as a community of people, and that we want to bring in that want to make a better tomorrow through their voices. And I think Bridge is the same thing. I think other nonprofits are the same thing. It's about getting the troops and rallying people around it. If you have more mentors, can you help more people?
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you have more money, can you help more people?
Absolutely.
So it's bringing more awareness to what's happening in our community so that we can help shape it. And right now we have that opportunity, even though it does not feel like it. Yeah.
I 100% agree. And actually, having been in the position of leading nonprofits, nonprofit comes with a lot of value, right? I place a lot of value on my nonprofit, but I'm at the mercy of my community to place some value on us and the service we provide. You don't necessarily find that in such an acute way. Let's just pretend we're talking about business, because I consider us a business, even though we're a nonprofit. We're just in the business. We're just in the business of healing people instead of making widgets. Yeah. But if company A doesn't have a product that I don't need, I don't pay attention to company A.
Mm-hmm.
Nonprofits can't survive that way.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have the focus of the community on what we provide so that we can get the people the help that they need. One of the things that I'm very proud of at the Bridge is that we've continued to identify the barriers that people have to get to us, whether it's that they can't reach us by car, that we don't have the language they speak, that our hours don't work. And so our constant challenge to ourselves is, how do we make sure that we are the most accessible? Outside of having a van that drives around to provide mental health services, which probably carries its own questions, we continue to deliver in that way. But not everybody holds that as a high value. And so do you see the connection I'm making, where people can decide whether or not they should look at us, spend resources on us, come to us for services, right? Whereas if I'm a business and I'm selling widgets, it doesn't matter what people think.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I think so. Not everybody wants to help. Is that what I hear you saying? Is that it? I mean,
well, not everybody wants to help because maybe it doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
But it does affect us, because what happens when we ignore issues of mental health, right? Major violence.
Yeah. I would ask those people to listen to more stories of people that are going through things that are hard, and in that line that they're going after, because I think it's kind of all of our jobs in this time of history to put in a little bit of work to make a better tomorrow. You know, the smartphone made our world really transparent, and now we know things about each other that we don't not necessarily want to go, especially this time in history that we're in. But to me, it all starts at home. So we should be giving in some way. It's either our time or it's resources, if we're lucky enough to have those. But to say that something like mental health doesn't affect you because that pocket lives across the street, well, and it doesn't affect your neighborhood. Well, maybe it does. Maybe your kid goes there, and now your kid's going to see something in high school that maybe they didn't see, because that poor kid is going through trauma because of the things and the hardships that they've experienced. Those are real things. And very, very rarely, and I grew up poor, I grew up around poverty, and very rarely do people make decisions because out of it's usually out of necessity or survival. So to not judge, not to do anything in there, but to learn from people that are different than you, and to see how can I be a part of this solution, especially with something like mental health. Not everything is going to be for everybody, but for mental health, I personally think that that's going to take all of us to help uplift our communities, because it's real. And if you say it's not, I'm going to tell you probably a liar, because it's just how we work as humans. You know, trauma is in all of us. We've all experienced trauma, and that trauma comes off differently for all of us. So if we need to work through that, but we don't need to, in my opinion, we don't need to judge people in ways that, if we don't understand their story, we should go seek to understand their story, in my opinion, because it does shape our community. Even if they're not in your, across the street from you, whatever that is, it's going to affect you in one way or another. And I think we have this opportunity in this world today to look at ourselves and be like, man, we all have a little bit of work to do. Mm-hmm. But what if we all just did a little bit? What could this world look like? And to what you're saying, I think that's more of us need to think like that. And if you're not thinking like that, just to put it bluntly, maybe you're part of the problem. Mm-hmm. Because it's going to take all of us to make our community stronger. And
yeah. And I'm particularly concerned about the mental health of our kids. I think the anxiety and depression has reached staggering levels, and kids are talking about it like crazy. Mm-hmm. Suicide is a leading cause of death in 12-year-olds in this country.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So sad.
And so how do we continue to help people access mental health services and supports? And I think that's the real philosophical question. But at the end, I think it starts with one person. It starts with two people, right? And I think before we started our conversation today, we were talking about how, how do men perceive mental health? And you told me a story that I'll let you tell. But I think it's a real thing. Not that the resistance to mental health is men. I'm not saying that,
No.
but I think that it's definitely more apparent.
Yeah. It's I think it's a generational thing too. But like me, I'm pro mental health. I've worked through struggles in my life, but if I look at my family, like my grandparents didn't talk about mental health, and my parents to this day won't talk about therapy or mental health. And, I love them to death, but there's opportunities there that they could live a more joyous life. And I think that's a lot of people. And I share that in a state of vulnerability because I think we all have those types of stories within us. For me, mental health is important. And it's important because I've not been healthy before. I've been depressed. I've been anxious. And when I'm depressed and when I'm anxious, and this is long periods of time, I do unhealthy things. I hurt myself in ways that make me not feel. And that's not a way to live. You could experience more joy, but you might have to put in that work. Sure. I'm not sure if this is exactly the story you were talking about, but for me, like my mental health journey, it was April of 2020. I was probably in the low of my life, just flat out working through a lot of things and being a new entrepreneur, being still early stages of being a dad. And, I'm struggling. I'm for years, I'm anxious and I'm depressed, and I had it with alcohol at that time. I don't drink much anymore, but at that time I was very much suppressing feelings with alcohol. Then I go to a doctor and they're like, "Oh, here's this SSLR," and ask me a few questions. And here's eventually the next step, because that didn't work. Here's some Adderall. This is your problem. Well, that wasn't a problem by any means. And I got off of that stuff in April of 2020 because I felt I really needed to be able to become my true self. But I had to put in the work, and I had to look inward to realize that not everything's pretty, and that a lot of the things that are happening in my life are because of the way that I'm handling things and the decisions that I'm making. It's allowing this to be a domino effect. Now you look into that, and with therapy, and I talked about my therapist in Amy. I mean, she's awesome. She's an entrepreneur herself. She's also a therapist, author, etc. But she helped me get better and see myself and to break out of some of those habits and those cycles that I was in. And it very much came around my mind and my limiting beliefs, and not only those limiting beliefs, but also the trauma that I've gone through. And I'm going to be really honest, guys. I have such loving parents. I had such loving grandparents. Did they believe in mental health? No, but they're amazing hearts and they're amazing people. And, but I had that stuff. I had to work through it. And to me, I look at society today and, it's mental health, how grateful is becoming more and more of a conversation, because I think we all have it. Just like we all have trauma. We always, at some time or another, we all experience anxiety. We all feel depressed in some way or another. And there's different levels to that. And I'm not going to compare anybody's, but, for men, I think it's important to if we can't be our best selves, and if we can't do that inner work, how can we help uplift our family? How can we help uplift our community and to help make a better tomorrow if we're not right at home first? And there's all this talk about masculinity and all this stuff, and God forbid you talk about your feelings within that sort of stuff. Just go around it is what you hear a lot of people saying. Well, I'm going to tell you, there's a very select few people that can go around it. And those people are probably high operators in the military somewhere, CIA, high level people. Most people carry it. And they might not even know they carry it. Because I remember, I'm fine. I could push through this. But then I went home and I drank a quarter bottle of Jack Daniels or whatever it is. I wasn't fine. I was just covering it with something else. And to me, it's let's get real with ourselves, and let's look at to make ourselves as men and women. But in this question, we got to fix ourselves and do that work so we could help uplift our kids, because I think that, and even if you don't have kids, we got to uplift other people's kids and our neighbors, because if we don't, who's going to take care of us when we're old? That's real.
Oh my gosh. Seriously. That's the question, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get healthy so that us old folks can have good care.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
This world goes quick. So, and we only have a limited time here. We get 80 to 100 years if we're lucky. So to me, it's about leaving the world better than we found it. Each generation has done that. Well, now we have found and learned a lot through this generation because of how we get information. We could learn more and quicker and faster than any generation behind us. So let's look at the real issues like mental health and whatever else is out there, and let's look to fix those. That's our role. You know, I told Carrie, and I'm rambling there, I get it, but I told Carrie, I have a book from my grandpa. It was called The Greatest Generation. It was about it was Tom Brokaw book, and it came back in, and I'm sorry, the play of it was like in the 50s, early 60s area, but it's talking about the baby boomer generation being the greatest generation. And I look at us as we actually have to prove that. But the world needs us to be the greatest generation, to be the local leaders in our community, to take all this crap that's coming at us and be like, oh, how can we make this better? And that's going to take all of us, because there's so many different skill sets that come with that. But yeah.
So when you talk about, your struggles and the steps that you took to get the help that you needed, what was the tipping point? What made you make that decision?
I saw myself, not being the best for my kids. I saw myself saying, I'm fine. I could push through it. But I was being, not nice to my wife. I was being angry because of what I was inside. And she loved me. She worked through it. She saw me. She would be like, what the heck are you talking about? But I wasn't my best for her. I wasn't the best for my kids. And it was like, what am I doing here on earth? Like, this isn't what I want to live. I saw addiction. I saw depression growing up inside and outside of the family. And that could ruin your life. When you're not putting in that work, whether it's addiction or whether it's other mental health issues. If you're not putting in that work, it could really limit your life. And when you're going to limit your life and you have kids and you have a wife, what are we really doing here? So to me, it was that piece of like, I need to fix what's inside. And no matter how hard it is, and it's definitely hard, still hard.
Yeah. Especially when you're somebody who prides yourself on being able to handle anything. Like, this is just a blip. I'm going to get through it. Yeah. And for myself, even, it took me a long time to seek counseling. I'm like, I am a counselor. Like, I'll just look in the mirror. And that used to be my joke. I'll just talk to myself and I'll feel so much better in the morning. And it's really interesting when someone holds that mirror for you.
Yes.
You don't really like what you see, or you don't like what you've heard. And it's really important to be able to find the things that you think will make the difference and get those off your plate first. One of the things that I was challenged with in many of my roles was being a defensive communicator. And being a defensive communicator actually is a trauma-based communication style based on a lot of things that happened as you were growing up. And then as I dug into that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Thank you, Taylor Swift.
Yes.
And I was like, shoot, now if I change the way that I communicate, at first address why, change the way I communicate, all of a sudden, now I'm having new relationships with people, or different relationships, or different conversations, deeper conversations, because I was also a surface level person. I was like, well, here's my circle and this is as close as you'll get, right? Yeah. And so when you have trauma, or when you have things that you have left unaddressed on the table, you you sort of build these walls around yourself to protect yourself, be your own hero. And then you're inaccessible to your kids, to my spouse, to my family. And to your point, what's the point?
Yeah. It's, I remember you were talking about looking at yourself in the mirror and not liking what you see. And I remember that time frame, and it came from one of the healing tools. It's definitely therapy for me, but it was something called the Enneagram. It's like a leadership type thing, but it's pretty much saying there's 9 different types of people, blah, blah, blah. And I'm a 3 in that. And I was looking at there's healthy and average and then unhealthy sides. And I was reading the 3 of the unhealthy sides, and I'm like, oh my God. And I had so much shame. And I remember like just being down in the dumps, and I was carrying it. I was heavy. And it took a while to work through. But I knew I had to figure out where it all was coming from. And it took a while. It was years. But it was important for me to like bring people around me that loved me for me, that were, and I didn't have to put on this facade or somebody different. So that small group of community, plus like a amazing wife, that wanted to see me grow too. Like you can get through these things. And if you don't have those things, like go search for the small community because they're everywhere. But seeing your unhealthy side and seeing it hurts. And it hurts for a lot of different reasons. And for me, there was so much shame that I had to work through, like having to look at like, that's me. That's not what I set out for. How did I get there? That's a shitty feeling to have. I'm sorry to cuss, but it is.
It is. And I sometimes I give myself the lion's share of the blame for certain times, especially my kids' lives, when I wasn't completely accessible for them, whether because it was my job or my emotional state or whatever. And then how much therapy do they now need to work through that period of my life that I had them carry, right? Which was really heavy. So we're preaching to the choir, mental health is so important for us to gain access to and to make sure that we have the tools we need and the people around us. Why do you think some people, beyond generational, gender, why do you think other people don't seek mental health treatment?
Maybe. I don't know. I think about that a lot, especially as, you see these clips and they talk about masculinity and masculinity's dead and all this other stuff. And so I think about that because I know there's a lot of people that aren't going there. To me, I don't know. I don't know why they can't. To me, my personal opinion, I think it's, they don't want to deal with it. And it's much easier to say, I got this. But you have to be the one that says, oh, if I keep saying I got this, but I'm acting in these ways that are unhealthy, kind of what you said earlier, do I really got this? And the answer might be no. And that's when it's great to get therapy, to get a small group of people that you trust that could help you and let you be your true authentic self to help you come out of whatever you're in. But I don't know why. I wish I knew that. I'm all about being tough. I'm gonna get. I think for me, like people are like, oh, masculine is dead or whatever. I'm like, no, you can talk about your feelings and still be masculine. In fact, I think in my personal opinion, I think it's more because now yes, my wife, I'm a better dad now that I work through my stuff. And then I continuously work on my stuff. Like I'm a hot mess. I think many of us are, but I'm a better dad. I'm better for her because it's that process for me has made me more thoughtful of how I'm coming off to others. And that was the piece that wanted me to, I knew I needed to change. Like, I didn't want to be like that. I didn't want to carry those things. But I had to put in that work. But I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know if you have a magic wand for that, I would love to hear it.
I wish, because I would just wave it and everybody would want therapy.
Yeah.
Who needed it?
It helps, Is there a stat out there, totally off, but how mental health it's gotten more prevalent in our society, but we've grown at it, right? Haven't we improved with it? But we still have work to do. But what's your opinion on that?
Oh, that's a great question. I think we actually are now looking at it. I think we know what we're looking at. Whereas as before, I think it could be taboo. It could be don't show anybody what's in your book. It could be, what happens between these walls stays within these walls. We don't want we don't want you sharing that. So I think that, and thanks to the pandemic did very little for us, but I think the pandemic did that. It really shined a light on people were not well. And not physically, they were not emotionally well. Seniors were isolated. Their mental health took a complete dive. Kids poorly socialized, did not get to make friends, very depressed, anxious. So that, I think, even though COVID exacerbated mental health in this country, I think that it really shined a light on the importance of having providers, available services. Think of BetterHelp. BetterHelp is telehealth.
Yeah.
That came right out of COVID. Yeah. And now everybody,
it's amazing. Yeah.
Right, has access to a therapist online if you want it.
Yes.
And so I think that's where we're at. Are we getting better? I don't know. I would say we're having more access points.
It's interesting.
But I do think that there are so many different pressures in our country at the moment that are creating other sources of stress and anxiety that I think it's going to be a while before everybody starts to come to a baseline. That's my own unabridged, no research opinion. But the number of people that I talk to who have a lot of stress and anxiety over this upcoming election, for example, over the conflict in Gaza, over North Korea joining Russia, right? I mean, there's all of these additional things, and we're exposed to all the news all the time.
That's it.
Which is just giving us an unfiltered inundation. Is inundation a word? We're inundated with just bad news.
Yeah. I think that's a part of it. And I think that's why, two things. I think with that stuff being at our fingertips with our phone, I was going to reach for my phone, but that stuff with our phone and how we get the news now, that can't be healthy, right? Like how the algorithms go, like it can't be totally healthy. It's got to be doing something to us. And whether it's raising cortisol levels or whatever it is, it's got to be doing something. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. But I can tell you, like, working through my midday and looking at my phone and seeing something about Russia and North Korea, that does bring anxiety to me.
Yes.
I'm a man of faith. I understand that those types of things happen in our world, and that it's why it's so important to love local and to support one another locally. But yeah, a big piece of it.
Yeah, my advice for people, my advice for people is don't worry about it. If it's not happening in your backyard, don't worry about it, because there's very little, one of us, 10,000 of us, 70, let's just say 70,000 of us. There's very little 70,000 of us can do for any of those bigger issues. But think of if we turn off the filter, or if we put on a filter and turn off all the bad news and focus on the things that we can affect right in our backyard with
our world changes,
with our neighbor, then your vision changes of sort of what your world looks like. And, I think that that's where I get so inspired by our conversations, because it doesn't have to be this big. It can just be this big. And it's like I tell my staff, my kids, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Yeah. And so, that's what we're dealing with. That's mental health. And you have this elephant. You have to address this elephant. Yeah. So
there's not much we could do about the federal level. There's not much we could do about the global level. But it's we could make a true impact. Why we're naming our company Love Locals? Because we think this content and that 6 degrees of separation could do some good. But it starts locally. Like, we can't fix all the other stuff. We can fix here. We have to talk to each other. We're going to have to talk to each other. And really right now, I think it's really important to talk to people that have different views than you, because this election cycle is is different for everybody. And this I would say this last 8 years is different for everybody. But talking to your neighbor that you know their heart, talk to them. And even if they have difference of views, because I bet you kind of both want the same things. Mm-hmm. So now we just got to figure out how do we build that win-win here in our local community to make sure that we could help uplift, the people that are around us, because at the end of the day, all we have is each other.
So Jason, thank you so much for sharing all of this with me today. Do you have any closing thoughts or any words of advice that you'd give our listeners about stepping into their journey to address any of their own issues?
Yeah. For me, I think it's starts at home. If you're not feeling right, if you're anxious, if you're depressed, if you're feeling other mental health issues, is seek support. What's helped me is small groups of people, exercise, and really being cognizant, even as I build two businesses, to make time for peace. Those things have helped me with my mental health, with the foundation of give yourself grace and allow yourself to work through whatever you're working through, and know that you're loved and that you're going to get through it, but it starts at home.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming on to the podcast today and for sharing all of your thoughts.
Thanks for the opportunity, and keep doing what you're doing, helping people with mental health.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. This has been the Mental Health Minute Podcast. And I'm Chris Stallard with the Bridge Youth and Family Services. Have a healthy day.